Hey friends, it's Anoosha here, and we're kind of at the tail end of Lost Stick. I pretty much only have 3 pages left. My end papers, which is what I'm working on right now. Wait, actually scratch that. I've got 4 things left. My end papers, which is what I'm going to try to do today. I have my case artwork, and if you guys don't know what that is, this outside portion, this is your jacket. This inside portion is your case. Sometimes you can have a different case cover than your jacket, and I had asked to do that for my book because I had sent over a bunch of different options for my jacket, and unfortunately the publisher did not pick the one that I loved. It was a little bit too stylistically weird for them, but I still really loved it, and so we kind of just decided that I would use it for my case instead. It's been a while since I have painted traditionally, not since my interiors, which I had finished like well over a month ago now. So I'm a little bit rusty, I'm a bit scared, but we're gonna figure this out, right? I bought a bunch of paints as well at the beginning of the month from Gwartzman's, which is my favorite art supply store in Toronto. And so I bought a bunch of acrylic gouache. I have been pretty much exclusively using regular gouache for this book and just in my work in general. And I really like regular gouache because it's water-based. It means that if you have your palette, it does dry out, but you can reactivate it with water and then reuse your palette. And I love that because I'm very stingy with paint. I don't like wasting paint, and I love that I can just reuse it later on. And then the other reason is that apart from like wasting paint, I hate color mixing as well. And so I don't want to have to like remake the same color multiple times because that paint just keeps drying up. So those are the pros of regular gouache. However, the cons, wait, what? This one and then this. Okay, got it. Cons, however, and this is kind of a big one for my art, is that I really love doing mixed media. I love playing around. Shoot. I love adding color pencil on top. I love layering paint. I like adding pastels. But the problem is that you can't really add paint, like regular gouache, on top of regular gouache. Because if you have like a layer of gouache, and then you go in with another layer, because it is water activated, guess what happens? You end up disturbing the layer underneath, and you end up mixing that paint, unless you're very careful, right? And so that was kind of like really annoying at times when I would have like a mistake or I want to add like a little bit of a layer and I just couldn't. So I have all of this acrylic gouache now, and I am debating, especially because this is a pretty simple sketch, and I'll go into like what this is in a second. But I was like wondering, like, do I want to break in these new acrylic gouaches and paint with them? Especially because this is a pretty low stakes thing. It's just the end papers, you know, no big deal. So unfortunately, I can't ask you guys. Would that I could, right? Okay, what is this? So these are my end papers. This is the line down the middle, so imagine this is going to be folded over. Because this book is about like this little puppy, he goes on an adventure around the world. There were a lot of gags that I wanted to do in the book itself that just ended up not happening because of the page count. And so I figured it would be kind of fun if I included some of those gags over here. It's not a repeating pattern, funny enough. All of these are unique doggies, and then they do get repeated at the top and bottom, but all of these are unique. So, and they're all kind of bigger as well. So once we get to scanning these in, then I can kind of figure out if I want to go in and make these smaller and make this a much more repeating pattern, but I'm keeping them kind of big right now. Then the other thing is that deciding whether or not I want to do paper cuts. And you know what? I think F that. I am not in the headspace for this right now. Yeah, especially because like this is my first traditional piece after so long. Let's just keep it easy breezy. These are just end papers. I'm gonna do these with paints only. And I'm also gonna scan them. Okay, let's get my light board. Light board? No, light box out. Of course, Link decides to jump onto, oh God, onto my desk at this moment. I'm gonna have to kick her out pretty soon. My God, Link, why now? Why now? Okay, I've taken out 2 sheets of paper, and again, because this is end papers, we can link your tail. 1 piece of arches is not going to be enough. This is my 140-pound sheet, 11 by 16 inches. Yeah, this is a little bit too small in length. So I could do 2 things. I can just like try to squeeze as many of these little guys. Oh shit, okay. I can squeeze as many of these guys in onto 1 page. Or I can keep it 2 size, because my thing is like I want to retain the pattern somehow. I don't know. Okay, I have to kick this cat out, sorry. Okay, I had to kick her out and scare her with the vacuum. And before anyone goes like, oh no, this poor little kitty, she could have stayed. No, she's a menace and she deserves everything she got. As I was saying, I could probably fit all of these guys onto 1 sheet of paper. Now my only question is if I want a colored background and leave Milo as pure paper white, or have the background be white and have Milo be like a kind of cream or ice blue color. And I think I'm gonna lean towards having the paper be colored just because it's a bit more fun. I am actually gonna look through some end papers because that's always really fun. Okay, so this is a really fun example of like a white piece of paper and then having like color around it. However, like I said, I feel like it might be a little bit more fun if like the background is colored. But what color? Oh, you know what? This kind of like teal looks pretty cute. It's like a bright red. So it's actually a really, really beautiful day today, which is why I had like all my camera filming equipment out. But unfortunately, I got sick again. I had been sick at the beginning of the year since pretty much Christmas, and then I finally got better, and then lo and behold, over the weekend I started like getting sick again. Okay, looking very cute. Then hopefully I can fit these all into 1 page. Jeez, I have been waiting for ages and ages for a good sunny day to show up. I live in Ontario. We have been in like winter mode, and I mean, you know, like winter, like obviously like it is winter time, it's going to be dark. Ontario has pretty much had like 2 sunny days this entire month, and today thankfully we had a sunny day, and I was like, okay, it's perfect day to film. I have like plenty of light, it's gonna look amazing. But lo and behold, I'm sick. What's on his hands? Oh, they're bracelets. Okay, I see. I think I have enough to say for this portion. I think I'm gonna listen to a podcast now. So I will see you after I have scanned, oh sorry, not scanned, after I have finished drawing all of these little puppies. And I'll meet you at the drawing board, or the painting board, I guess. Right, everything is sketched up. I did, you can't see it because I sketched it and then I erased everything. Just because since we are leaving Milo paper white blank, and then I'm going to be doing a bit of like colored line art on top, I don't want to have these red pencil lines showing. Because once you paint over pencil, then, you know, it's just going to be there forever. I also am so dumb. I made the mistake of like, everything's kind of crowded into like this one area, and I drew all the way to the edge. I really don't know why I did that, because now I can't put tape at the top. And I'm actually going to move everything down a smidge so I'm closer to my paint palette. I'm going to start off with painting the background, just so I can base all of my interior colors off of that. I decided on yellow. I think that's going to be really nice and bright, and as far as I can tell, I don't have any yellow repeats in the rest of this piece. Yeah, I don't think yellow appears anywhere. Yeah, okay, I think I'm good. So I'm also, as you can see, I'm using my acrylic gouache, because although I do have a yellow wash, which is in here somewhere. This is the difference. This is my regular designer gouache in Marigold. This is deep yellow acrylic wash. Again, because I'm going to be painting over this, I don't want my colors to be mixing, especially onto my lovely paper white Milo. So I'm going to attempt with the acrylic wash. Oh, that is way too much water. That's way too much water. Yeah, I've never used acrylic wash before, so I don't really know what to expect. I also know that, you know, if like people are asking like what the difference is, what you should use for acrylic versus regular. I've heard that acrylic wash is great if you want that kind of retro look where you are only painting with flat colors. But if you want a bit more depth, if you want to have like a bit more shading or whatever, then regular gouache is better for that. I think that also makes sense. If you have like a more flat style, then Holbein has a lot of colors available for acrylic gouache that are just like kind of ready to go. For example, this really gorgeous misty green. This is available in the acrylic gouache, but not the regular gouache. If I wanted to have this in my regular gouache, I would have to like mix it. But like if I was using my acrylic gouache, which I bought like a bunch of colors for, I could like make like a whole painting without mixing any colors, which sounds very appealing. But then like there are like pros and cons to that as well, right? Because I do love that kind of little bit of gradation you can get. I do love the consistency of acrylic gouache. I love how much color is coming out, just how vivid it is. It feels very good actually. And I'm actually glad that I'm like testing out my acrylic gouache over here because I'm debating whether or not I want to use gouache or what for my next book. Okay, you know what? I'm going to paint all of this yellow. Not this part though. Not this part though. All of this yellow, and then I'll get back to you in a little bit. All right, we are back at it again. I actually did not do any painting yesterday. I was out for the whole day because I got my hair done, and I have wasted quite a bit of time because I do really need to make sure this gets done today. But all of the backgrounds are done. I actually ended up asking, I jokingly asked Dan, like, hey, could you finish it up for me? It's getting kind of tedious. I want to do something else. And he's like, okay, sure. And I was like, oh no, I'm just kidding. It's okay. And no, he insisted like, yeah, I'd love to help out. So yeah, I ended up going to the gym and Dan finished up the rest of the background for me. I scared him a lot though. I was like, you absolutely have to stay within the lines. You cannot get any paint inside over here. So he ended up leaving like a little bit of a border around. So I just spent the last 10 minutes like filling those in. But we're going to get into like actually painting the rest of these now. So we're going to test out this paint. It's the Holbein Artist Gouache Prussian Blue. So I have been using, this is the Prussian Blue from Arteza. This was like my absolute favorite color. You can see that like it's pretty much been squeezed out. Unfortunately, Arteza does not sell their paints individually, which is messed up. So I'm really, really hoping that this Prussian Blue is similar, because if it's not, I don't know what I'm gonna do. But the good thing with this is what I'm thinking is I'm just gonna go color by color. I'm gonna go in and do all of his little nosies and ears, and then and any other like darker spots. And then yeah, we'll just go color by color. As I mentioned, I don't think there's gonna be any yellow in the actual any of these guys. Like this is gonna be orange, there's gonna be red over here, etc., etc. The only one that might be an issue is the banana. So I might go for like a really light banana yellow, like a really pale yellow to counteract this. But yeah, we'll see. So let's start painting, and I figured it could be fun because I was sick. You guys had some amazing questions last month in January. You guys were killing it. I will answer my remaining questions in this video. So I'm gonna pull up those remaining questions. Here is one of my questions. It goes like this. Hi Anoosha, I sent my portfolio off to about 6 different agencies and received a pretty consistent response of your portfolio is fun, especially strong in animal characters, but it is not a fit for us at this time. Is that agency just being nice and really means I need to improve it, or could it really just not be a fit at the moment? Basically, I'm wondering if I should go back to the drawing board and make a bunch of new pieces, or if I should continue sending it off. Not sure how nice agencies usually are. So I always want to preface agency type questions with a disclaimer that I had a more unusual route to getting my current agent. While I have like the info, in terms of like the process, I'm not like the best person to ask for this kind of stuff. If you guys don't know, originally I had straight out of school, I did apply to a bunch of agencies, but they were all illustration agencies. This person has not specified whether they're applying to illustration or literary agencies, but like when I had first started, I did not know what a literary agent was, so I was only applying to illustration agencies. I applied to I don't even know how many, probably like several dozen, and I got no responses from anyone. So the fact that like they were responding quite nicely back to you is in itself, I think, is quite nice. I had only gotten 2 responses back who were interested in representing me, and that was Advocate Art and Lemonade, both of whom I don't recommend for representation. They have their issues. I've been getting a lot of emails from people recently of asking me, you know, like, what is my issue with Lemonade? My issues with Lemonade are not just like limited to Lemonade. They are now across the board with a lot of these boutique illustration agencies. So the issues I have with Lemonade also are for agencies like Advocate, Bright, and people might be shocked because Bright houses a lot of really big artists. All of like these boutique agencies, I just have beef with all of them. So, but that's besides the point. Maybe I can talk about this another day. Anyway, when I had submitted to agencies the first time around, I didn't get any positive responses back. So the fact that you are getting some, I think, is a good sign. Then secondly, once I left Lemonade and I wanted to kind of go solo, that's when I was contacted by 2 literary agencies kind of like at the same time who were interested in representing me, and I ended up going with Full Circle. So I did not go through the querying process. So unfortunately, I don't have a lot of information on how the responses are usually like. My opinion is that if you are responding to literary agents, they are not being polite for the sake of being polite. Depending on what specifically they said with the email that you received, I think it might just be that you do just need to like strengthen your portfolio a little bit more, and maybe it really just is not the fit right now. Even if they are being polite, regardless, you would need to work on your portfolio. You know what I mean? If they were being honest and that like you just need to like add some more stuff and rework it, then you would have to rework your portfolio. If they were being polite, either way you kind of still have to. I know who messaged me this question. This was a lovely talented artist who was part of my art club portfolio review here, and I had worked with them for several months on kind of like adding more stuff to their portfolio. And looking at your portfolio now, it's so freaking good. You've added like so much good stuff to it. I kind of understand like where these people are coming from. It doesn't hurt to like add more things to it. And honestly, on the other hand, it could also just be that you are not the fit of like what they are looking for. Again, like this depends on like whether these are literary agents or illustration agents. It is possible that they have people of like similar styles that they're representing already, or that that's not really the kind of style they're looking for. They don't really do like animal kind of portfolios. So it's actually really hard to talk and paint at the same time. But my point being is just like, I don't think you should like take it too hard. Add some more things to your portfolio and try again later. I know this is it takes a while. This, as like talking with like my friends who do go through the querying process, sometimes you have to go through like several rounds of applying to places before you find the right fit for your work, like the right agent. And in any case, I mean, like, you can try again in a few months, like after you've reworked it with these same people. Maybe there is like an agent out there who, like, in your mind is your dream agent of like, oh, this person represents like all of my favorite artists. They seem like they're at like a really big agency and like they're really cool. But if they don't believe in your art, then like they're really not the right fit, right? You want someone who looks at your artwork and is like, holy moly, like their stuff is amazing. I want to support them. I want to be representing them and being their cheerleader. That's why I absolutely love my agent, because like even when I'm making poo-poo garbage, she's just like, girl, you're freaking amazing. And even when I was like submitting to projects for like Lost Stick, for example, like a lot of people just did not get it. And I would second guess myself of like, is it really stupid? Is it like not a good idea? But my agent would be like, no, man, this is really funny. I think you're onto something, and, you know, kind of selfish, keeping me like self-assured, I guess. So yeah, I think you should just keep doing what you're doing and just try again in a few months. These are all done. Oh, it was a lot harder than I thought it would be, because I don't know if I mentioned this earlier in the video. This was like 2 days ago, but all of my brushes are messed up. Right after I finished like my last Lost Stick pages, I had accidentally just like forgotten all of my good brushes in my water, and the water, one, ruined the brush itself, the body, and then it squished up the top of my brushes, and so a lot of them have lost their shape. I'm gonna have to get new brushes, because I was cycling through all of my brushes hoping to find one that still held its shape, but unfortunately not. Okay, next, now that I'm done with all of my dark blues, I think I'm gonna go in with my reds. Red does show up quite a bit, so red's gonna be over here, the hat. Oh, I should have done a red nose for him here. Red here. Okay, now this will kind of lead me to my next question, which is, let me pull this up. Hello, I'm wondering if you have any resources for color and how you choose which colors to use. I have trouble sometimes deciding what exactly would work best in a piece. As always, I highly recommend the book Color and Light by James Gurney. He also has a really great YouTube channel as well that I recommend, which is free, which unlike the book. In terms of like how I personally choose color, what I first start off with is just kind of figuring out what the purpose of the illustration is, because that will kind of determine what the colors are. So in this case of the end papers, I'm trying to go for a pattern look, and I want to go for something that's quite vintage, quite iconic. So my biggest thing is that I want it to have a limited color palette. If you are doing like an illustration that's like a nighttime scene, that's kind of like moody, then you want to kind of establish, okay, like what is the setting, what is the place, how is that going to determine my color choices? If the mood is supposed to be happy versus gloomy, how is that going to affect my color choices? All of these things, you have to make all of these decisions of what your illustration is even trying to convey, and all of these choices will kind of narrow down those colors for you and establish your palette. Then the other thing that's really helpful is starting off with like one color. So that's how I usually go in with any painting. It's just like having in my mind beforehand, and that's just kind of like a feeling that you'll have, like an intuition of like, for this page, I was like, I know 100% I want the background to be yellow, or like, yeah, I want like some color to be like the background, but I kind of narrowed it to yellow because I love yellow, because it's bright, it's happy. And as I mentioned before, yellow does not really show up in any of my other costumes that I have. And it would make it a lot easier to avoid, like, you know, the yellow. If like my astronaut suit was yellow, it would blend in with the background, right? So that's like another choice that I made. So once you have like your main color determined, then you would choose the rest of your palette based off of that. Because I'm working with a limited color palette and I'm using traditional paints, I can actually just pull my paints up and kind of figure out what colors I want to use. So this is my yellow that I use for the background. And I'm gonna pick maybe 4 more colors to be my palette. And I'm gonna stick with like flat colors here. So 100% I have my yellow. I'm thinking maybe not this pink. I just bought a new recently. Okay. So I think I can use this pink pretty often. I can use the pink over here. I can use the pink for the sari here. I can use the pink for the workout outfit. So for sure the pink can come in handy, and I think it'll work well with this. What I might just do, because it's kind of being washed out a little bit against it, I might add a little bit more of a darker hue to it, but this is kind of gonna be my base color. Then I know I'm gonna need some kind of orange. I know I'm gonna be using my orange for the spacesuit. It's gonna come up again. Wait, am I gonna reuse it? Okay, then maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I shouldn't. Okay, back to the drawing board, jeez. Okay, for sure I need red. Okay, that much I know. Then I have my red over here, or this red, yeah. So, okay, as you see over here, this is where color choices kind of come into play and mood. You have 2 different reds over here, this vermilion red and a light red bright. Now, because I'm looking at these colors over here, I'm kind of noticing that, okay, these are quite muted yellow, muted colors. Adding this vermilion red is going to make this red like really stand out with these colors. This would be great if I wanted red to be the highlight of this piece, but I don't want that to be my highlight. And so I'm gonna instead pick this more muted red, more of an orangey red, because the other thing, vermilion red, is a bit more cool toned, and I think the cool is not going to work with the rest of my palette. I want this to be quite warm toned. This works a lot better, so that's how I make that color choice, that I would rather use this than this. Next up, I'm probably gonna need some kind of blue. I picked this up recently, but I also have this. So then I can kind of see, does this work better or does this? And just looking at my page, is it going to be more useful for me to have a bright blue like this or a more muted blue like this? I'm gonna look at my page. I think potentially this could work well over here or here. I think this might just be a personal choice. I'm gonna leave these aside for a second. I know I'm gonna need a green. This is more of an ash yellow, but I do like how it's looking. Just like rummaging through my colors here. I've got a deep green, but I think this might be a little bit too strong for what I need. So I think I might stick with this ash yellow and maybe add a little bit more green to it. Okay, I've got 4 colors so far. I think for sure I need a blue to round it out. I think this one looks kind of nice. I feel like this blue is, again, same thing with like the vermilion red. It's like a little bit too strong and like it's gonna really disrupt my palette. I don't want blue to be my main color. Okay, then in that case, I think I'm gonna stick with this pale lavender kind of thing, or wait, aha. Okay, I think maybe this, see, okay, this is the other thing with color choices, is that you just play around until like something fits. Unfortunately, because I'm doing traditional media, I have to kind of establish this beforehand because I can't change my choices as I'm doing it. But if I was doing this digitally, I really don't come in with a palette in mind. I kind of just like play around, and if something doesn't work, I switch it out until it just eventually looks okay. This is a little bit too cool toned. Maybe. Okay, whatever. I'm gonna stick with this. No, I don't like this one. Frick. What do I do? Okay, I'm gonna do this. I need a brown. I'm gonna have, this is a little bit too dull. Okay, that's gonna be my brown shade. And I think this is a good enough color palette. I might need a beige at some point, but this is how I kind of determine my palette and what my intention was for this. So we're gonna go one by one. I think most likely I'm gonna start with the red and go from there. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna start painting a little bit. Hopefully this little explanation of color was somewhat helpful. Honestly, there is no real rhyme or reason. It is just about like working at it until it makes sense and just going in with those initial choices of like, what am I trying to achieve with this piece. Okay, I'm gonna go in with the first color and I'll come back with the next question in a little bit. I have laid out all of my reds. There weren't as many as I thought there would be, but you know what, I can always go back later and then add in more. I'm thinking most likely I'm gonna go in with my browns now because I do have quite a bit of brown here, 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 here. Yeah, okay. So I'm gonna do this now and then get on with the second question. Okay, my next question is, Hi there, Anoosha. Thank you so much for answering our questions. I was wondering how to deal with procrastination. Deadlines really help me, but I find myself completing work as close to the deadline as I can. Would you be willing to share your timelines too of your schedule of a small project, research, sketching, etc.? Also, time of day, working for how long, and breaks. And also how to stick with the schedule. I think a lot of my decision paralysis stems from imposter syndrome too. Okay, I thought that this would be pretty fitting for my next question because I sat at my desk 10 minutes ago to start working, and multiple times I would kind of like set up to be like, okay, I'm gonna start working now, and then I would like somehow find myself on TikTok or and then be like, oh shoot, no, I need to be working now, I need to like get back into it, and then somehow again like find myself on Facebook, and it's just like this weird endless cycle that it's like I'm not even consciously thinking about it, and that like mostly like stems from my ADHD, and I'm still kind of figuring it out. But just to say that like I'm probably not the best person to ask. I can give you like a lot of tips on how to deal with time management, how to deal with procrastination and all of that, because I know all of those talking points, I know all of the tricks. I'm going to give you a lot of tips, but I mean, it's not really stuff that I actively follow or like I try to, but it's so hard with ADHD. You do really need to have like so many systems in place to make sure you're doing the work, and even then it's like such a struggle. So I guess twofold. It is kind of helpful because I'm going to give you the stuff that I try to do, and then the stuff that I definitely do that kind of works. So you have like the usual tips of make sure you don't have any distractions around you. So be in a space where, if you're able to, like a dedicated kind of working space. So for me, I'm thankful that I do have like a home studio, but if you have like a room in your house that's quiet, where people are not going to disturb you, or better yet, if you're able to like get out of the house, because I know for me, especially like being in the house, I feel like there are too many distractions around. That's one of the downsides of working from home, that like, oh shoot, I gotta start like cooking food. Oh shoot, I gotta start doing this. I gotta fold the laundry and stuff like that. That just comes up because you're at home. And so alternatively, going to a place that doesn't have any of those like environmental distractions, working at a library, working at a coffee shop, working at a co-working studio, a space that has like, you know, no distractions, that is super helpful. And so those are like more environmental kind of factors. And then you've got more of like your little vices, you know, the stuff that personally affects you. So for me, my phone is a really big issue. So if social media is like a big distractor, then having that completely out of your room where you're working, so you're not even looking at it. If you're wearing like something like an Apple Watch, turning that off, or like turning off notifications. I had like about 2 weeks last year where my phone was broken and I was waiting until like the new iPhone dropped. So I had about 2 months where I just did not have a phone, and I did not have notifications. I did not have any alerts. And it was frustrating because I needed to be connected to that kind of stuff, just work-wise. But and like attention wise, it was the best like 2 months of just like complete no distractions, nothing really like alerting me at all times. So if you're able to, like while you're working, just like keep it the hell away from you. Actually, just in show of solidarity, I'm gonna move my phone away to the other side of the room so that I'm not being distracted. Hello, get out of here. Then having something like the Pomodoro method, which if you don't know, it is the tomato timer. If you Google it up, Pomodoro, like the tomato. It's a timer that you can set up, and it basically works in increments of 25 with a 5-minute break 4 times. So you work for 25 minutes and then you get a 5-minute break. Then you work for another 25 minutes, 5-minute break. You do that 4 times, and your 4th break is going to be a 15-minute break. It's going to be a longer break. And having like some kind of timer system like that is also can be really helpful, because you kind of know that you have like a little chunk of a break coming. Because I don't know about you, but like depending on like what your attention span is like, there's only like so much time you can have where you're actively productive and working before you need that little bit of a break. And reward systems are always helpful. So if you know that, okay, in 10 more minutes, I'm going to have my little break. So I just got to push through as much as I can in these whatever 10 minutes that I have. That's a lot easier, you know? So now I come across the issue where I need reference for the colors for this thing, but I need my phone for it. Now, thankfully, because I'm recording this, you guys are keeping me accountable. So hopefully I don't get distracted. I just like look at my reference and then I can get back to work. But if I was by myself, I would go onto Google, search for German costume. And then I'd be like, oh, you know, that reminds me, I have to look into my email. Oh, that reminds me, I gotta do this. And then 10 minutes later, you know, I've wasted all of that time. So that's like my issue, where like I just get like sucked into it. So, okay, this was just brown for the pants. Okay, so Pomodoro is super helpful. What else is helpful? Planning. I believe that everyone should have like some kind of planning system in their life to like manage everything, because you literally cannot keep everything in your head. It is impossible. It's too much information, especially in this day and age that we live in. You can't keep that all in your head. But it's all about like finding what planning system works best for you and your brain. And I think I might make like a video about this in the future. But for me, like nothing ever worked. Like no planners, nothing physical. I tried all the apps, nothing ever worked. Last year, I finally tried Notion, and I did like a really simple version of Notion. And although I didn't like use it every day and I would kind of like skip for a couple of weeks, it was the only system that actually worked for me at all. So this year, and like the beginning of January, I kind of like leveled it up. I bought like a fancy new template, and I've been really enjoying it so far. And again, like I'm not super consistent with it, but it's better than nothing. So yeah, find whatever like works best for you. You might have to like try a couple of different things, but having like that kind of like time management system is super helpful to just lay out, okay, these are the projects that I have going on, these are when all of my major deadlines are, and then within that, what was helpful for me is a couple of things. First is to divide up that schedule as much as possible. Now, because I have like multiple projects going on at a time, it's a little bit difficult to kind of like figure out what takes priority. But essentially you just kind of have to make choices every single day on like what are your priorities for that day. So if you have like multiple things going on, then let's say I have like a book project, I have like a book cover, and I have a presentation, and they're all kind of coming up soon. So then I would kind of figure out my priorities, that okay, which one is due tomorrow that I need to get started first. That will always come into like first priority for me. Then the next priority would be like the project itself, of like how important is it? Is it for like a big old huge client that's like it needs to get done by, it needs to be done, or is it like a small little thing, like a favor for a friend who is a little bit more lenient even if I'm a little bit late? And then finally it could just be like your level of interest as well, because that can also dictate what order you do things in. Because let's say you have like multiple important things to do that day, but there's one, maybe like you don't have the brain capacity for the book project. You're like, I cannot be bothered with it. I want to do something a little bit easier today, so I'm going to do the book cover instead. So every day you just have to like make those little choices to figure out like what you're going to be doing. Let's move this up here. You guys are traveling today in my little video. So that's one thing. Another thing that I do is I try, in terms of like doing things last minute, one, I will usually learn this from like the Notion template that I'm using right now. It's from Jules Acree, Jules, and then Acree. I'm using her template, and it is based off of the productivity concept of getting things done, I believe. And essentially, oh my god, I'm so congested right now. 1 second. Okay, excuse me. I just had to like blow the biggest booger out of my nose. But essentially, you're gonna have two things. You're gonna have your due date of like the day that it's actually due, and then your due date, D-O. And that's like the day that you're actually going to do something. So whenever you're writing things down in your little planner, your little calendar, you want to keep these two dates in mind. And also just be actively aware of what your due, D-O dates are. So for example, if in my calendar, I only write down that I have this book cover and it's due on March 15th. Well, I'm given like my deadline, but that's not really helpful because it doesn't give me additional information on how to set up my time, and it's also going to cause me to get things done pretty much last minute as well. So instead, I try to figure out what my DO due dates are. So if I can break down this project in any way I can, I do that first. So if I'm doing a book cover, most likely has already been broken down, where like my publisher has decided oh my god, this brush is so dirty. They have decided my delivery dates for sketches and revisions and finals, etc., etc. So that might already be decided. But if you're looking at like a personal project, then you have to kind of make up those days yourself. So let's say you are wanting to query for a picture for an agent. Then you want to give yourself some deadlines. So you tell yourself, okay, on May 1st, I am going to submit to agencies, okay? So that is your due date, D-U-E. So now you're going to break this down further. Okay, I am going to try to first you have to like lay down your objective a little bit better. So I want to have a completed portfolio to submit to agents. Okay, what's in that portfolio? I want to have 10 pieces of artwork related to a personal project. Okay, so that is your goal for your due date. And now we break that up. You have 5 months or however many it is until your due date. How can we break this up into smaller pieces? Okay, so let's say within your first week, by next week, I am going to plan out everything of like what all of my pieces are going to be. Then my next date would be that like every 2 weeks, I need to complete one piece of artwork. Okay, so now you have like much more manageable delivery days. And now if you wanted to, you could break this down even further where like you have delivery days for your sketches when you want to complete each of these things. Then another tip that I have in terms of like avoiding delivering things last minute, apart from like breaking it down into more manageable goals, is to move up your due date. So if I have something that's due on the 31st of January, in my calendar, I'm not going to write down that it's due on the 31st of January because I am going to leave it to the last minute. Instead, I am going to give myself some buffer time and say that it has to be done a week before, so that if for some reason I run out of time and I don't manage my time properly, then I can easily, I now have like some extra extra days to work on it. Okay. I ended up adding the blue. I've put in, I believe, all of my major colors. The only thing missing is my beiges, but I think I'm gonna hold off on the beiges for a second and just go in and do all of my eyes and mouths real quick. The other things that the question had asked was, would you be willing to share your timelines to your schedule of a small project? And also time of day, working, and how long of your breaks. So this is, I can give you like an insight into like what I do, but this is all like totally subjective, and you can like use like what I say as like a jumping off point, but like it's very individual, and like what works for me may not work for you. So you kind of do have to like figure it out on your own. But for me personally, in terms of like what my schedule is like, I know for sure that I am a morning person. You kind of have to like first figure out like what your most optimal times are. And for me, that is the morning. I know that I wake up early. I know that my brain is freshest first thing in the morning. So my working hours are technically 9 to 5. And the other reason I do this is because of my husband. He works a 9 to 5 job, and I like to be working when he's working so that so that we both get off of work at the same time. Maybe if I was living by myself, it would be different. Maybe if my partner had a different schedule, it would be different, but this works for us. I also don't work weekends unless I really have like crunch time going on. So I just try to make sure that like I am as optimized. I like work as much as I can during my weekdays. In terms of my breaks, again, because my husband has like a 12 o'clock break, I usually have a 12 o'clock break as well, which TBH is not great for me because I feel like I don't really hit my stride until like 10, 11, and then I get hit with like my lunch break at 12, which kind of ruins my flow. But I really do like having lunch with my husband, which is why I end up prioritizing that. If I really have like a deadline that's kind of important, then, you know, I'll kind of work through lunch and I'll have like a later lunch instead. But again, it depends on your priorities. Anyway, so you might have noticed that I said that like even though my brain is like the sharpest first thing in the morning, I don't really hit my stride until 10, 11, and this is because I procrastinate. I get distracted. So I give myself the rule of like, sit at your desk at 9, no matter what. Just like at least make sure you're at your desk, because otherwise I end up like wasting too much time like having breakfast or like cleaning up or what have you. So at least like if I'm in my studio, at least something's gonna happen. So there's that. But in terms of like work, TBH, like even though like 9 hits, I sit down and then I kind of like, I'm on my phone. I'm doing like less intense stuff, like emails. So for a long time, I would start my morning with my emails and do that first thing in the morning. And then it would take me like an hour to get through my emails. And then I kind of realized like, why am I wasting my time on emails? Because this is like, I could do my emails like later in the day when I'm like more tired and I've kind of run out of my creative energy. I should be using this on important things for like drawing and stuff like that. So that's like one thing I have to remember as you're thinking about like how your best day functions, because you know, if you're like a night person, maybe you want to do like nighttime work. If you like working in smaller chunks, whatever, you know, like whatever like works best for you, then you might also want to think about, okay, what type of work do I do at what time? So because my brain is strongest first thing in the morning, I like to do like the high input stuff first. So whether that's drawing, but even within like drawing, I'll do like the hardest stuff first. So something like painting flats, that can be left for later for the day because I don't really have to think too much about it. But for something that requires planning, like sketches, you know, that needs to be done first thing before I get too tired. In terms of breaks, what I like to do, I mean, apart from my 12 o'clock lunch, I'll kind of have breaks throughout the day. There aren't any set times, but because I have an Apple Watch, at the end of every hour at like 10:50, 11:50, I'll get an alert that's like, you need to complete your steps for the hour. So that forces me to get up, and then I end up going and filling up my water, getting some more tea, saying hi to Dan, doing my prayers if I need to, so like stuff like that. So like usually once an hour I will get up, unless like I'm really in like a flow mode, then I won't. If you're doing the Pomodoro method, of course, then you have like more strict hours. But I like to play it by ear. I feel like I don't really need to. My only thing is to make sure that my break hours don't go too long, because then otherwise, you know, I get distracted for a really long time, and then my break ends up being like 2 hours long, you know. So at least having a limit is important. I'm not super productive in the day. Like, I don't get all of the work that I need to get done, and it is imperative that I get it done, then I'll work longer than my 9 to 5, and I'll kind of like work until like 6 o'clock or something. But like one thing, I have like a really bad habit of being too strict on myself, of being like, oh my god, I just did not get any work done today. Just ask Dan. Like, he'll be like, Anoosha, you always think that you did not do enough work. And I usually feel that way. I'm just like a little bit too hard on myself. So there are two things for that I have to keep in mind. One, I've started like writing down a to-do list of like everything that needs to get done, even like the small things of like email back so-and-so, or like paint this guy and then this guy, and then tape up your thing and clean up your desk, like all of the minute things, as well as like their additional steps. And as you know, it's a really good ADHD tip, because then you can feel a little bit more accomplished. And one, it like breaks down the steps a little bit, so you don't feel as overwhelmed of like, because if you say that clean up your office, that's very overwhelming. But if you kind of break it down into tidy up your desk, put away your dirty mugs, and do all of these like into step-by-steps, it feels a lot more manageable. And then the other effect that it has, apart from making it feel manageable, is you kind of realize that, oh shoot, I actually did do a lot today, and then I feel a lot better about myself. Because there are days where I'll be like, oh man, I didn't do anything I wanted to do, but I still got a lot of stuff done. And especially if you're a person who you feel like very critical towards yourself, that can be super helpful and alleviate a lot of like that pressure that you put on. I kind of was talking about this with some of my friends recently, where I was like, yeah, I take so many breaks and I get so distracted during the day that even though I say that like my hours are from like 9 to 5 and I'm sitting at my desk pretty much the whole time, I'm probably really only actively working for 4 hours of the day. And I was feeling really bad about that. But then I was talking to like all my other artist friends, and they're like, you know what? Like, I feel the same way. Like, I also only get this much done. And then someone kind of pointed out that there was like this article that they had read, which I had also seen before, where it's like, you can only really be productive for, something like 4 or 5 hours, and the rest of the time is just busy time. Which is why like there are a lot of companies that kind of switch to like a 4-day work week or like a 5-hour work day, and they still report like even more productivity, or you know, like about the same productivity than if you would have like those 9 to 5 40-hour work weeks. And yeah, it's because like our brains are not designed to just be like intensely working nonstop for all of that time for like 8 hours in a day, and especially with something as intensive as creative work, you know, it's a lot. So again, if you are feeling kind of like I feel like I don't get enough done, I feel like I'm only doing this, blah, 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 then even like 4 hours a day, if you're really only doing that much, it's fine. It's fine. It's normal. Don't feel bad. It happens. And that's just the way our brains work. So don't feel too bad. Were there any more points that I wanted to say to this. Share your timelines too of your schedule of a small project. That one's gonna be like a little bit more difficult because like, I mean, it's kind of like, it depends on the project and it depends on like how much other stuff I'm working on at the time and like the details of the project itself. I don't think I should have outlined his face like that. Oh shoot, I wish I didn't do that. I wish I didn't do that. Okay, whatever, you live and you learn. This up, I really wish I didn't outline his face. All right, I think I have answered all of the questions. Not very well, probably, and I do apologize for that. I've also finished up all of my flats, so I think I'm gonna go in and do some detail with color pencil just to add a little bit more texture. And then most likely I'm gonna also, do I have any other red peeking through? I'm gonna see if I can add some paper cut effect to these. It might be a little bit hard, but I'm gonna try my very best once I scan it in. But I'm gonna go in with some color pencil, which is always my favorite part. I'm using my Prismacolors that I love so much. And hopefully these will add a little bit more depth to these pieces too. Ooh, look at that texture. Looks pretty good. And you know, I'll bring out my Poscas as well, because those are always fun. And okay, I did mention that I was using my acrylic gouache for these. My remarks, you know, now that I've painted everything, is that I really do like acrylic gouache. I see the appeal. It's I always thought that acrylic gouache was going to be more difficult because, you know, it like dries quicker. But I realize now it's kind of the opposite, if anything, because it's a much more forgiving medium. It glides, well, first of all, you can like layer super easily, but the paint itself, it's like so much easier to work with. Like it just glides on your paper. It's so nice and chunky. So like you can see in comparison, all of my acrylic gouache bits, they are very much nice and flat, but then my gouache, my regular gouache, and I use the regular gouache for the greens a little bit, the pink a little bit, I added it in, and then the dark blues are pure regular gouache. And they're kind of splotchy, which is like a nice texture, but sometimes you don't want that. So that is why acrylic gouache is really good for when you want to get that retro flat color down, but sometimes you don't want that, right? So now the big question is like, do I want to keep using it for my books? And I don't know, I guess it'll depend on the project, but I did definitely enjoy using this. But you can kind of, I'm going to show you over here, but I used way too much paint than I needed. Like you can see my pink over here, my blue, like this is like so much wasted paint now that I can't revive. And that does piss me off because ideally I could have used these colors again for another painting, but I can't. So I guess I just have to be a bit more mindful of how much paint I use for these pieces, but it is what it is. Okay, do I want to add any more Posca? No, I don't think so. Okay, let's go back in with our color pencils. Okay. All right, this is Anoosha from the future, I think like a week from now. So we're pretty much at like the end of this little video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. It was like a little bit chatty. Hopefully you got a bit of work done while I was talking. But let me just like wrap up and show you what we have here. So you can see over here, this is my scan with everything painted up. I had mentioned that for most of my Lost Stick pages, I had done like a combination of scans with my Epson Perfection scanner, as well as taking photographs for my collage pieces. However, because there is no collage in this piece, and I didn't want to hire my old photographer again for something so quick, I just decided to use my scanner. My scanner is pretty good, but I don't know, with like some things, there's like a little bit of a blurry, glowy quality to it, which I don't know how to describe it, but it just seems a little bit off, but it is what it is. Because the page was pretty big, I did have to like scan it 3 times and stitch it together, which is why we have like this weird black outline around. And then I actually, on the Friday this was submitted, I had to like submit it in. I had to go downtown because I was invited for a special breakfast for the Forest of Reading nominees, and I totally overslept, and I was supposed to scan these up so that I could work on them during the day while I was downtown, but yeah, overslept. So while I was on the train, I asked Dan to do it for me. Once I had those scans, I pulled them up onto Procreate, and I cut around each of these little doggies and space them a little bit better, as well as repeating the pattern a bit more. And then made a couple of minor touches, made sure to brighten it up, increase the contrast, etc. Made the outline a little bit better for some of these. So then we ended up with, let's do a quick look here. These are the end papers that I ended up with. So you can kind of see it. It is a bit more crisp. I think that the pattern is really cute, even though because my delivery day was that day, I was really rushing to get it done because I had other stuff to do as well. So I couldn't get as detailed as I would have liked. And the other thing that I wanted to do, which you can kind of see here, I've got this lovely textured background from the paint. And once I had cut around these guys and spaced them out, there were a lot of blank white spaces around them. But because I didn't have Photoshop on me, because I was out of the studio, I only had Procreate, I couldn't use the content aware fill function. So because it was just like the quick delivery, it was for our launch presentation, I ended up just like painting this entirely as like a blank yellow. Although you can see there are like a little bit of errors poking here and there. But eventually when it comes time to like the actual final delivery, I'm going to redo this background, use content aware fill, maybe even add like a bit more texture. And potentially, because these paper cut things are pretty prevalent throughout the book, I might go in and add like a fake paper cut effect around these. Later on in the month, I'm going to give a breakdown because I did some more recording of the case art that I did. I didn't have time for that for this video because it was getting too long, but this is how it ended up. And I wanted to show you guys because this like the title over here, this Lost Stick, that is fake paper cut. I did this on Procreate and I gave it like a little bit of a fake edge all around, and I think it looks pretty realistic. I added a little bit over here as well. So I'm going to go into the process of this in the video that is going to come out at the end of the month. So if you have any questions about this, please let me know and I'll make sure to get to them in that video. But yeah, I think it'll be kind of cool if I added that paper cut effect to all of my little doggies. But I hope you enjoyed this little video and I will see you next time.